Hi, I'm Jesse Fink.
And I'm Louis Navia.
She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie. Cocaine.
We're the authors of Pure Narco, out now through Roman and Littlefield.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie. Cocaine.
In the days that you were working, Jesse touched on how Hollywood both glamorizes and also probably cartoonizes the drug trade. When you were working and you saw shows like Miami Vice or movies like Scarface or whatever, where drug lords are the villains, did you laugh at the movies that you saw, or did sometimes they get them right? What did you think? What was it like seeing your industry portrayed on screen?
Well, a lot of stuff is untrue. Like,
Yeah.
for example, when I was in Miami, I worked with probably the most violent, Sicario group that there was at the time, and I'm even good friends with a Miami-Dade homicide detective back in the '80s, who my good friend Poli, who I highly respect, had a hit on him. Here's a guy who has a hit on a Miami-Dade homicide detective. This is reality. And I was his chauffeur. Here I was, a guy with a business card from New England Mutual and a tie and a three-piece suit, driving around a guy who has a hit on a Miami-Dade. And Miami-Dade Police Department had a hit on him too, because he had hit a couple of them. Here's a guy who's killed some policemen. In Colombia, he killed a bunch of them. In Miami, he killed a few. In Miami, nobody wanted to deal with Poli. I mean, not even Griselda, who's a badass, crazy, psychopath bitch, wanted a piece of Poli because, like it says in the book, Poli had already killed 15 policemen in Medellin while Griselda was still sucking tit. So, saying that, I would say that it's complete bullshit when you have in Scarface a guy in a house in Miami, having a complete 30-minute, 45-minute shootout with Bolivians or whoever they were with machine guns and grenades. In reality, you fire one shot, two shots in Miami, the cops are there right away. I don't know, maybe the cops are in on it, not, but, that doesn't happen. You don't have shootouts like that. You have shootouts like that in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, but not in Miami. Yes, it's true. We used to drive up into banks with duffel bags and give them money, complete, 10, 20 million. That's true. People had tigers with gold chains, and you go to a guy's house and he had a chimpanzee with a gold chain. Goddamn chimpanzee with his name in gold. The goddamn chain back then in the '80s cost $50,000. A gold chain, no problem. The chimpanzee, the guy was walking, I had a friend that had I had 14 cars.
Wow.
I had a safe house with a warehouse with a safe with $2 million in case anything went wrong. I could run. It's all bullshit. It's not. In the essence of things, it's bullshit because in the end, I don't care if I had a warehouse with 14 cars and $2 million. In the end, a policeman that makes $35,000 a year is going to put handcuffs on you.
Yeah.
And take you away, motherfucker. And it's all over. And you can take that warehouse with your 2 million and the 14 cars and, shut, when the sun don't shine. But, and for example, the CIA, the CIA was like me. They get involved in the business because it makes money. It's not shoes. We got involved in the business because we made a lot of money. If not, I wouldn't have done it. If I wanted to make $30,000 a year, 60,000, 100,000, I should have, but I didn't. I should have stayed in my dad's sugar business. But when you're 23 years old and you look at 6.5 million, you go, whoa, this may be the rock and roll moment for me. Going back to rock and roll.
So staying on the topic of Hollywood and how it incorporates the drug trade. This question is for Jesse. Jesse, in the book, you mention Cocaine Cowboys, you mention Wolf of Wall Street, you mention Wiseguy. These are all fairly famous adaptations and stories of, real life events. What would you say sets pure narco apart from those, or would you say it's in good company with properties like that?
I always sort of thought of Lewis's story like a Wolf of Wall Street sort of tale, really. A few reviewers have picked up on that. And it's certainly not Scarface. There's no sort of blazing shootouts or anything like that. There's no chainsaws. However, there are a couple of people in the book who meet, grisly fates, and Lewis at one point is almost fed alive to crocodiles. There's no shortage of, blood and gore in the book. But ultimately, it's a tale of a regular guy who was brought up in a privileged family in Miami, who had every opportunity to sort of go into legitimate business and become a legitimate businessman in a legitimate trade, but for myriad reasons chose a different path. Mostly, I suspect was adrenaline and excitement. Also, his desire, I guess, to live up to his father, and his father is a big figure in his life, and I think that relationship that Lewis had with his father is something that I tried to explore as much as possible, certainly as much as he would open up to me about it. And I guess it's a tale of, just like the Wolf of Wall Street, where, you can end up, with tens of millions of dollars, and everything that you can possibly imagine, every kind of, hooker and car and home and, every kind of material thing you can imagine. But really, what do you have at the end of it? And, Lewis ends up in prison, and he loses everything. He gets out of jail, and, he has to kind of reestablish his relationship with his two children, and that's really what I think matters to him most is his relationships with his children. And he, by his own admission, will tell you that he feels incredible shame for that, what he was involved in, and he feels so lucky that he ended up being able to have a relationship with his children after everything that happened. And so it's a human story, and I guess it's about choices that we make in life, and are the choices that we make good ones or bad ones? And certainly there were times when I was writing this, I was thinking, what the fuck am I doing being a writer? I should have been a drug trafficker. It sounds fucking great, I would have had a far more exciting life, but he certainly lost a lot. And I guess the thing that we both had to be cognizant of throughout was we didn't want to glamorize it too much, because there were victims in all this. Right. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of victims, whether it's, people who, suffered under the violence of Pablo Escobar and the North Valley Cartel in Colombia, to the people who lost children here who, had drug overdoses. You don't want to kind of glamorize the drug industry and excuse, its excesses and its sort of, wild, the wild things that happened during that time, especially in the 80s, because there were
extravagances.
Yeah, great extravagances, and terrible crimes. so there are a lot of victims in this, and we don't want to kind of forget them. And certainly, I would hate for someone to read this book and think that kind of, you know, we're giving a pass to all of that, because we're not. We're very, very aware of it, but at the same time, we're being truthful and honest and saying, look, you know, yes, some of it was exciting, some of it was thrilling, and the reason why people watch Narcos around the world is that the drug business is very exciting.
Welcome to the limit. Standing on the razor's edge. Don't look down, just keep your head or you'll be finished.
You're listening to Pure Narco FM with Joseph K.